Yeah, hi there. These comments are for AK, and I am Michael, the founder, owner, and the materials writer for all of your lessons at the 7-step system to pass the TOEFL IBT. And you're one of my online TOEFL students, and you sent me an independent writing practice test. I think this is number 4. So the question is, what is the best way to, or what are the best ways to reduce stress? Give reasons and examples for your point of view. I read it. I'm also scoring it right now, so I would put your score between 2.0 and 2.5, or 14 to 17 points out of 30. So I think it's really, there's a few things that you got to work on if you want to improve your writing, and it's not going to be easy. One of them is organization. You need to have better topic sentences in your body paragraphs. I'm going to show you how to do that. Also, you need to develop better control over your sentences, your words, your punctuation, your spelling, and so on. And remember, as you practice, I think that you're taking a writing course right now. Remember to type all your papers on the computer, use a spell check, and really pay attention to the words that the spell check is correcting. All right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take what you wrote, and I'm going to show you how you can get a perfect score on this. I'm going to show you how to revise your sample so that it scores 5.5 out of 5. So I'm going to say edited version of your essay. This one, I'm going to put it at 5 out of 5, or 30 points out of 30. So let's start. You say nowadays. With the increase of life's demands, that, I don't even know what you're saying here. You say people are facing big stress in their lives. Demands. I got it. So with the increase of life's demands, you want to say, people are facing instead of that, how about, so you can probably work on your vocabulary. I think your vocabulary is very basic, so that's one thing that you can do. So instead of saying what you said, people are facing significant stress in their lives. Now, instead of saying there are, you can say many. Usually, there are is a little bit wordy. You can, instead of saying there are, say many studies show that large amounts of stress, not could be, you need active voice here, not passive voice, so could affect people. How about this? People's health, or make this a little more concise. So many studies show that large amounts of stress could affect, probably don't even need the article there, could affect people's health or social relations. However, we can reduce, don't even say these. If you say these, you have to use a plural, and we don't really use stress in a plural form. We can reduce stress by knowing how to deal with it. You need that it. What is it? It refers back to stress. In my view, if you say in my view, you don't need to say I think. The best ways to escape stress, you can say are finding time in our busy daily, you want to make this plural, why, because you're saying it's finding time in our busy daily lives, and I would change this to an infinitive, to spend it with our families, or because you said finding, so finding time or reading, so that's a parallel structure issue. So the best ways to escape stress are finding times in our busy daily lives to spend it with our families or reading some books that could refresh. I would say here maybe relax is better, because you want to connect this back to reducing stress, right? Okay, now let's see how many words we have in our introduction. I think you have about 330 words, right? So you might say, this. In some cases, for example, some people's high stress levels have been linked to heart disease. See, I'm just developing this paragraph a little bit more, and I think that's fine what we've done here. I'm trying to get it closer to 100 words. There we go. So just wanted to add something in there to help raise the topic a little bit more, right? All right, let's take a look at the first paragraph one more time. So you say, nowadays with the increase, maybe here ends better, the increase in life's demands, people are facing significant stress in their lives. Many studies show that large amounts of stress could affect people's health or social relations. In some cases, for example, some people's high stress levels have been linked to heart disease. In other cases, stress may be a factor in higher divorce rates in the United States. Now, what did I do here? I put the first example, heart disease, because it goes to the idea of health, how stress affects health, right? Now, the other example, it shows how health can affect social relations. That's why I mentioned divorce rates in the United States, right? So that way I'm taking this idea that you brought up and I'm providing a little more information in that area. Yeah, however, we can reduce stress by knowing how to deal with it. In my view, the best ways to escape stress are finding time in our busy daily lives to spend it, or maybe finding time in our busy lives, maybe, I'm going to say here, use a gerund, by spending it with our families or reading some books that can relax. And we're saying here are, right? So not your. So can relax our minds. So we're good. The introduction is fine, right? How many words do we have now? 106. All right, let's keep going. First, having family is the best thing in our life. Not a good topic sentence. This is not working very well, I'll be honest with you. You're just stating a fact. Having a family is the best thing in our lives. But what does your thesis really say? Your thesis says that we can reduce stress by spending time with our families, right? So here, I'm going to change what you said. So it says spending time with our families can help us to reduce stress. You can say, for instance, we cannot spend. You cannot conjugate the verb after a modal. It's got to be in the base form. So for instance, we can spend more time with our kids, maybe by visiting amusement parks, museums, and movie theaters. So we can spend more time with our kids by visiting amusement parks, museums, and movie theaters. And listening to our kids' stories I'm going to put a comma here. So we can spend more time with our kids by visiting amusement parks, museums, and movie theaters, listening to our kids' stories, so listening to kids' stories about their experiences at school and playing with them. Here you got to end this. You want to write this down. You're having problems. It's called a comma splice. You cannot join two sentences together with a comma. This is a big problem in your writing. You must solve this problem if you want to score higher. So you want to go to Google, type in the keywords, what is a comma splice? How do you spell comma splice? C-O-M-M-A, one word, the second word, S-P-L-I-C-E. Okay, so let's keep going here. So you say all that time helped you to feel more distress and more active. More distress. Distress is a negative thing. That's not what you're trying to say. I would say this: quality family time helps. It's not us. It's not you. It's us. Helps us. Why am I saying us? Because you started this paragraph with we, right? So this quality family time helps us to feel, you want to say, less stress, it helps us to feel less stress, helps us to feel less stress and more active. Okay, so let's take a look at your example here. This is a good one. So you have an example. See, for example, remember last year when I did my internship, I would put at a local hospital as a general dentist. And remember here, because you said I remember last year. Once you put last year in there, that's going to force past tense in all of those sentences. So here, so I felt high amounts of pressure at work. maybe here you got to end the sentence here. Then I got it. Then when you have no verb in there. When I went, you can't do that. You cannot omit verbs during the writing section of the TOEFL. It's one of the fastest ways to get into the 2 range. You have to have basic understanding of, say, then when I went back to my home, I found my little boy. You want to put here, who came to me and gave me a big smile. Instead of saying that, I will put which really removed all the stress which I had that day. So saying, as you can see, I would say this. Thus, spending time with family, I would say creates, maybe is better than have, creates positive energy you might put here, by removing, I would put the stress we feel from all the bad things that could happen. Maybe put here, during our daily routines. I might say something like that. And I think this paragraph is actually developed pretty well, so I want you to write this down. You notice sometimes I'm putting words like who or which in there. That means you don't understand exactly how to use adjective clauses, right? So go to Google. Here's another key word. What is an adjective clause? Because you're not sure how to use that. Now the next thing, here's another question for Google. What is a complex sentence? Or how to use a complex sentence in writing? You seem to be having trouble with that. That's also difficult for you. All right, so remember, as we're going through here, you want to take notes. I'm giving you information that can help you improve your grammar, which will help you improve your writing. Okay, so let's take a look at this paragraph. I think this paragraph actually is developed. I like the examples that you gave in there to help explain your ideas. Oh yeah, 146, that's plenty. 146 words per paragraph, that's very, very nicely developed. All right, let's look at the grammar one more time. First, spending time with our families can help us to reduce stress. For instance, we can spend more time with our kids by visiting amusement parks, museums, and movie theaters, listening to our kids' stories about their experiences at school, and playing with them. Yeah, here, I think I'm going to do something different. I'm going to put a semicolon to try to separate these different ideas. It might make it a little bit easier. So let's look at it again. Usually you wouldn't do this with semicolons, but I'm trying to structure the sentence, make it easy for the readers. So you say, for instance, we can spend more time with our kids by visiting amusement parks, museums, and movie theaters, listening to our kids' stories about their experiences at school, and playing with them. This quality family time helps us to feel less stressed and more active. For example, I remember last year when I did my internship at a local hospital as a general dentist, and I felt high amounts of pressure at work. Then, When I went back to my home, I found my little boy who came to me and gave me a big smile, which really removed all the stress which I had had that day. Okay, now here's another one. Go to Google. What is the difference between the simple past and the past perfect verb tenses in English grammar? That's another one you want to take a look at. Then you say, thus, spending time with family creates positive energy by removing the stress we feel from all the bad things that could happen during our daily routines. That's it. Now we're moving along. Now this paragraph maybe could be developed a little more. Let me see what we have. It's not as developed as the one before, right? So you kind of ran out of time maybe. So you say, second, escaping with your mind away from real life will help you to arrange yourself and your ideas again. Not really. This is not a good topic sentence. This is just like the previous one. You're simply stating a fact. You're not connecting it back to the stress idea. And when you look at the second point in your thesis, it says up here, we can reduce our stress by spending time with our families and by reading books that can relax our minds. So you say second. You say reading books helps to escape so you can say second, reading books helps us to escape from real life So what did I do here? This is important. This is a concept you have to really get. You got to get a hold of this one, I think. This is a major thing you got to do. So when you're doing a topic sentence, AK, it should not just be factual. It should be argumentative. And the topic sentence needs to refer back to the purpose of the writing. In this case, it's different things that you can do to reduce stress. That's why I put this in the topic sentence. If you look at the previous topic sentence, it says spending time with our families helps us to reduce stress. And then you're saying reading books helps us to escape from real life, which also helps us to reduce our stress. But then you're not really illustrating this idea. There are different types of books that offer some amazing ideas and take you to another world. For instance, still not very specific. If I did this, I would say something like this. The famous Harry Potter books you can put the fantasy world of witches, warlocks, and magic. So we have reading books helps us to escape from real life, which also helps us to reduce our stress. For instance, the famous Harry Potter books can take us into the fantasy world of witches, warlocks, dragons, and magic. As we read these types of books, we can easily forget about the stresses of our jobs and focus on the magic and the stories that are Harry Potter. You might want to say something like this. In fact, I make it I think I'm going to go to what you just said here. Let's go to I watched a TV show which talk. Now here's the thing, sometimes when you're you do have some spelling problems, but you're changing the word talk to take, which is a totally different word, which changes the meaning of it, and that's really going to hurt your writing because the meaning becomes unclear. So you say, well, in fact, I watched a TV show which talked about how reading instead of saying all of that, I would say this, can positively change human moods you might say, and during the show, the host, I would say, instead of they, they presented some true stories about people. Again, who, adjective clauses, complex sentences, those two things, write them down. You got to get control of that. That's why I made that change. And during the show, the host presented some true stories about people who used reading to relieve their stress. Notice how I didn't put ed there. You can't do that. When you're using infinitives, you need to keep it in the base form. Okay, now I think we have it. So I remember you had about 77 words, right? What do we got now? So we're over 104 now. So I developed your topic a little bit more. So I put this one in here about the Harry Potter thing. Now you could put whatever book you want, but the more specific you are, the better it's going to be for your argument, honestly. All right, let's keep going here. So we're going to make a few more corrections here. Second, reading books helps us to escape from real life, which also helps us to reduce our stress. For instance, the famous Harry Potter books can take us into the fantasy world of witches, warlocks, dragons, and magic. As we read these types of books, we can easily forget about the stresses of our jobs, I would put S, and focus on the magic and the stories that are, I would say here, that are Harry Potter. In fact, and then I'm taking your example, so I developed your paragraph a little bit more. I watched a TV show which talked about how reading can positively change human moods, and during the show, the host presented some true stories about people who used reading to relieve their stress. Finally, instead of saying there are, I'm going to just say this. Many methods help They help make, you're kind of saying to, but I think with help, it's possible to omit the infinitive there. So many methods help make people more comfortable and more happy. You can probably just say this. Can make people more comfortable and happy. So if you say this, not only, I would say here, will spending some hours with family so not only will spending some hours with family and spending is not actually a verb here, so not only will spending some hours with family help to reduce stress, you have to say here, but also we got to straighten this out. This is a major grammatical problem. If you want to know what to study here, you want to study parallelism in writing. Right? Let me put it down for you here. Parallelism in writing. These are things that you want to look at. This is the other one I said. Adjective clauses. You need to make sure you understand that. Based on some of your problems, I'm going to give you some key words here, and it's your job. You want to get better, you got to improve in these areas. I would put complex. So complex sentences in writing, I think, is another key word. Punctuation in writing, you can also improve on. And verb tenses, big time. Very big trouble with verb tenses. That's really killing your writing right now. So verb tenses, what am I talking about? Simple past, past, participle, and just general remembering, or not the past perfect, I mean there, and just generally using your verbs correctly in your sentences. So let's go back to this. But reading interesting books can also assist. I think we have it. So the main thing here for your grammar, if you put not only in the beginning of a sentence, you have to use the auxiliary verb, then the subject, and then the main verb. That's where you had trouble. So I put not only here, I put will. Will is the auxiliary verb. Then I put spending some hours with family. That's the subject. And then help is the main verb. So not only will spending hours with family help to reduce stress, but reading interesting books can also assist in reducing stress. We should all know what the best method is to live life without stress for longer and happier lives. And I think that's okay. That's not bad. I like the conclusion. It kind of ties everything together. Okay, so let me put some other things here. So you need some practice with topic sentences. And particularly here, creating what I call focused and arguable topic sentence. You're not just doing facts here. A topic sentence is, the purpose is not to just state a fact about something when you're making an argument. The purpose is to argue an idea and keep it general enough so you can develop it over 100 words. So that's also something that you can work on. All right, let's read the whole thing one more time. So what I did is I took what you wrote. Remember, your score is about 14 to 17 points out of 30. The revised version, it's going to be 5.5 out of 5, 30 points out of 30, and I made changes in your topic sentence. I added some details in there, here and there, and I straightened out all of your grammatical problems. And you had a lot of problems. That's really one of the main things that's putting you in the 2 range. It's your grammar limitations. All right, so let's take a look at paragraphs here. Nowadays, with the increase in life's demands, people are facing significant stress in their lives. Many studies show that large amounts of stress could affect people's health or social relations. In some cases, for example, some people's high stress levels have been linked to heart disease. In other cases, stress may be a factor in higher divorce rates in the United States. However, we can reduce stress by knowing how to deal with it. In my view, the best ways to escape stress are finding time in our busy daily lives by spending it with our families or reading some books that could relax our minds. First, spending time with our families can help us to reduce stress. For instance, we can spend more time with our kids by visiting amusement parks, museums, and movie theaters, listening to our kids' stories about their experiences at school, and playing with them. This quality family time helps us to feel less stressed and more active. For example, I remember last year when I did my internship at a local hospital as a general dentist, and I felt high amounts of pressure at work. Then, when I went back to my home, I found my little boy who came to me and gave me a big smile, which really removed all the stress which I had had that day. Thus, spending time with family creates positive energy by removing the stress we feel from all the bad things that could happen during our daily routines. Second, reading books helps us to escape from real life, which also helps us to reduce our stress. For instance, the famous Harry Potter books can take us into the fantasy world of witches, warlocks, dragons, and music. As we read these types of books, we can easily forget about the stresses of our jobs and focus on the magic and the stories that are Harry Potter. In fact, I watched a TV show which talked about how reading can positively change human moods, and during the show, the host presented some true stories about people who use reading to relieve their stress. Finally, many methods help make people more comfortable and happy. And not only will spending some hours with family help to reduce stress, but reading interesting books can also assist in reducing stress. We should all know what the best method is to live life without stress for longer and happier lives. All right? And that is the edited version of what you wrote. Okay, now, the next thing is I want to see what I'm going to go to the grading rubrics to explain the score that I gave you. All right, so let's take a look at your writing here. And it says, your practice test at this level has one or more of the following weaknesses. I'm going to tell you which ones are harder for you. So it says, limited development of ideas as it relate to the topic and the task. I think you were okay in that area. I did not give you a score or 2 because of that. The next one, inadequate organization or connection of ideas. Yes. Remember, AK, I had to rewrite your topic sentences and body paragraphs 2 and 3. That's a problem. The next one, inappropriate or lack of details, examples, or explanations to support your generalizations. In one of the paragraphs, I added the example of the Harry Potter. Your other example was really good. So I did add a little bit more detail. If you look at what you wrote, it's 330 words. If you look at my edited version, it's about 407. So I think I added I don't know, about 70 words, 70 more words to your essay. But that's not a huge one. Numerous problems with inappropriate word choice or word form. Yes, this is a problem in your writing right now. This is one of the reasons I gave you this score. A large number of errors in sentence structure and or usage. Yes, this is also an issue. Now, what do you do based on the score that you have? And how can you use my online TOEFL course to get better? That is the question before us right now. All right, so let's go to vocabulary. I'm going to give you some tips right now. First of all, lesson 3 I think is good. Vocabulary ebook of 200 basic words. Go through that book. Learn the words in those lessons. Vocabulary lesson 4. Vocabulary lesson 5, and vocabulary lesson number 6. I think that the vocabulary is hard for you. You tend to have very basic words. You sometimes are not using things exactly right. So you can definitely work on improving your vocabulary. That would be my tip. So vocabulary lesson 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you can see there's also practice tests that you can do to help reinforce what you're learning. Okay, now grammar. Grammar is a big one. So we got to take a look at which areas you need to focus on the most. I'm going to say lesson number 1 is good for you right now based on your writing. Lesson number 6, lesson number 6.1, lesson number 7, I would definitely study. Lesson 11, subject, verb, inversions. That was a specific problem you had in one of your paragraphs with not only. So study that lesson. Parallel structure. This was also an issue. Lesson 14. Lesson 16, count and non-count nouns. Very big problem for you. You're not sure when to make a noun plural or not. Verb tenses. Maybe the biggest problem of all is your verb tenses. You're not changing your verbs into past when you're talking about past type actions. That's something to look at. Okay, what else? Passive verbs, you had trouble with that. You had a lot of trouble with articles, lesson 20. Gerunds and infinitives, a big yes. You should study lesson 24. Lesson 25 is something else you need to look at. That's going to be important for you. I think lesson 26, I'm going to say yes. Lesson 27, being more concise, is also good. And you need to understand punctuation better. So lesson 28. Lesson 29, I think, is also good. And that's it in the grammar area. Now let's go to the writing part of my course, see if I can give you some general tips. For this one, I would put writing effective topic sentences. That seemed to be a big problem with you. So I'm going to say review that, look at that. Using transition words to connect ideas. Yes, I think that would be something that you can take a look at. And then one more, lesson number 8. How to make your writing more coherent. So that's also a good lesson that you can review based on where you are with your writing right now. Now, the most important thing you can do, believe it or not, is you took the first step and you sent me a writing practice test. I would do maybe, the first thing you want to realize is, if you're not satisfied with your writing score, I think that you told me that you've registered for the TOEFL exam next week. In my opinion, that's too soon. There's no way you can solve all these problems in 1 week. You have just too many issues. Think about all the lessons I just recommended. Let's be honest. Can you master all of that content in 7 days? Probably not, right? So if possible, I would postpone. Your TOEFL exam. It's $200. You're probably going to waste your money. You're not going to get the results you want. You should review and study these lessons I recommended before you take the TOEFL exam. That's my recommendation. So for you, start doing more writing practice tests in addition to everything else I've already said, so you can get more feedback on your writing. Now, I'm not going to give you exactly the same feedback I gave you today, but you will get a score on your writing, and you get some basic explanations of why you got the score you did. But what I wanted to do today was to do a diagnostic, so you could see specifically what areas in your writing you need to improve upon. That's why I did this video. All right? And thank you for completing this practice test.